Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Stees! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue think they slate, dropping unrealistic mad 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, flip on to Philly. Avoid you watching the Eagles all the way through to early 22. Authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that feel the day. Good morning, what is up, It's your boy Nicky Stees back again. We are live for episode 29 of the 3-Point Blitz, doing this on my channel, Nicky Stees channel, and the Hardcore Sports Network as always. So shout out to the network for allowing us to do the 3-Point Blitz every Tuesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as per usual, we're doing it again. This time, though, it's, we fresh off a crazy week 5, so we're going to have a lot to talk about. And then, also with the NBA season right around the corner in about a week or two, you're going to see maybe 1 or 2 short NBA segments thrown in there, along with the weekly recaps. But we are going to start this thing off. Let's just get the negativity out the way, go on the rant of the week, get it over with before we start off with the main thing. And also, a friendly reminder, while we're still talking about the Hardcore Sports Network, though, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, NFL fans, during the NFL regular season, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, your boy hosting NFL Pick'ems exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network. Each episode will be featuring special guest YouTubers, predictions for the upcoming week, injury reports, roster updates, debates, and more. Every Tuesday exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right, folks. So later tonight, we're going to have that going. And we ultimately going to see. So we're going to give it that. But first, let's just get the negativity out the way first. We're going to start with the rant of the week. And yep, Phillies are down 2-0 to the Dodgers. That's going to be a tough hole for them to overcome in the best of 5 series, because now there's basically no room for error. But we're going to let most of the baseball heads talk about that. But let's start with the rant of the week. This is going to talk about sometimes in life, there's more serious issues than football. Sometimes sports fans get so caught up in the sports aspect that we fail to sometimes see the bigger picture of things in life. And there was a situation that happened just recently with Mark Sanchez, where you guys remember it was in Indianapolis. He was there, he was getting ready to cover the Colts and Raiders game. And unfortunately, during that, there was an incident where he and a truck driver, about 16-year-old truck driver, got in an incident over a parking spot. Apparently, both them were hospitalized. The 69-year-old had a disturbing-looking cut on his face. His face was harmed in the incident. He had a long scar across his face going up this way. It was a hospital photo of him in the hospital. Then Mark Sanchez also had to be rushed to the hospital. He got injured in the incident. He was hit in the gut with a knife. So now, initially it was reported that Sanchez was in the hospital in critical condition. And we as football fans, we all came to rush to say our prayers to Mark Sanchez without all the details of the situation. But long story short, both contributed to the altercation. Sanchez tried to assault the 69-year-old elderly truck driver. The truck driver responded in self-defense, and they're both in the hospital. Now, Sanchez, we know, is being charged with battery, public intoxication, and disorderly conduct. But now here's the problem, though. I looked at the Pat McAfee show's comment section where they talked about it. And credit to Pat McAfee, they talked about the serious side of the situation. But the people in the comment section were making this situation all about making jokes about Mark Sanchez. Oh, this is the second most embarrassing moment of his career, yada, yada, yada. How is this more embarrassing than the butt fumble? Mark Sanchez's sentence will be 5 more years with the Jets. And that's where I got a problem. Guys, there are certain subjects you can joke about. Like, it'd be one thing if Mark Sanchez went on TV and stuttered over his words in embarrassing fashion. We joked about it being more embarrassing than the butt fumble. That's one thing. But you're talking about a serious situation where Mark Sanchez got intoxicated, acted disorderly in public, and on the flip side, nearly lost his life over it too. So that doesn't, I mean, both sides were ultimately guilty of in this situation. Both sides were injured and hospitalized as a result. But it's ridiculous that the people are turning this situation into jokes about Mark Sanchez's football career instead of realizing, guys, this is not about football. Sometimes there are much more serious issues in life. And a situation involving deadly weapons and assault over a parking spot is more serious. And it's important to point out that people need to stop making a big deal over the simplest of issues. To anybody who finds themselves in this situation, whether you're an athlete, a restaurant worker, a construction worker, whatever your occupation may be, an accountant, it doesn't matter in this case. This is a much more serious matter. All I got to say is, guys, be smarter in this situation, all right? Don't put yourself in these situations where you're assaulting people over parking spaces. Find an alternative and go about it that way. Now, we don't know all the details of the incident yet, but one thing's for sure, though, is that Mark Sanchez, in a serious situation, was wrong for taking a situation and getting into a physical altercation, and it nearly cost him his life. He's lucky he didn't lose his life in the hospital as a result. In some way, and this is just a serious and unfortunate situation, but guys, be smarter about decisions in life. Don't let the simplest of things have near fatal or serious legal consequences on you, all right? Be smarter than that. Now I'm going to talk about one more thing real quick before we get into the NFL recap. Now, because there was it just broke earlier today. I know I wasn't really going to talk about NBA-related subjects, but we'll just get to it real quickly. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the superstar Milwaukee Bucks player, almost joined the New York Knicks during the offseason. We heard the rumors that he was looking to go somewhere else. Supposedly the Knicks were his preferable team, but the Knicks couldn't offer the right package. All I'm going to say about this is, look, we're in this position now where we know super teams are not the new norm for the NBA. A lot of players still want to do the super team deal. Ever since KG joined the Celtics with Pierce and Ray Allen, and ever since LeBron joined Wade and Bosh in Miami, those two ended up being successful, winning a championship. Now, a lot of other players want to do the same thing. They want their own super team. And, well, just because... But then now we're in a position now where we've seen recent years, those super teams don't really work anymore. The last 3 NBA champions we've seen, it was starting with the Oklahoma City Thunder, the year before that the Celtics, the year before that the Denver Nuggets. All 3 teams had a mix of younger players, veterans, and they also had some role players on the team that scored. They weren't necessarily super teams. You maybe had 1, maybe 2 superstars at most on all 3 of those last 3 championship winning teams. So for the Knicks, they would have had to give up a huge package involving picks, maybe Karl Anthony Towns, just to make the trade happen. And why would you give up Karl Anthony Towns, who helped you get to the conference finals? This is the furthest you've been in nearly 2 decades, or a decade and a half. Why are you now, 2.5 decades, mind you, why are you now going to make a trade where you have to give up Karl Anthony Towns, who helped out? So to me, that's probably the reason this trade didn't go through, and that makes a lot more sense right there. Giannis wanted to join the Knicks, but the Knicks probably felt they would have to give up too much to get him. Now, we don't know the full details. This is just speculation. Obviously, this is just an attempt for Shams to get people talking about the NBA with the season right around the corner. But we'll talk about that more once the season actually starts. But, folks, the 3-point, we're here. mainly to recap NFL Week 5. It ended last night with the Monday night game. So now I'm going to switch gears and actually get into the football. Starting with the Thursday night, going to do what I usually do, make my rounds from Thursday to the Sunday afternoon games, take a quick break, then come back and talk about the evening, Sunday night, and Monday night games respectively. So let's get this thing started. Switching gears to something more pleasant, let's talk about 49ers and Rams. We got ourselves a nice game at SoFi between the San Francisco 49ers and Los Angeles Rams. For the second straight week, we get an NFC West matchup on Thursday Night Football. And for the second straight week, we get a matchup that goes right to the wire. So thank you, NFL schedule makers, for at least giving us two good Thursday night games. And now we get to see, hey, the NFC West is actually a pretty competitive division right now. I mean, both teams are, you have all four teams are, three of the four teams are pretty good teams. The Cardinals, I feel, are the weak team of the bunch. But that, I'll get more into them later. But even with the Cardinals being the weak link in the division, they're at least still a competitive team. And all four teams are pretty good. And we saw that here with the 49ers and Rams. Have themselves a nice back and forth game. We saw good performances from Puka Nacua, even in a losing effort for them. Matthew Stafford at 37 still has some juice left in the tank. And then you also look on the flip side, hey, the story for the 49ers, Mac Jones. Now, I talked about that a little bit in a YouTube short, talked about in a stream. Just going to reiterate real quickly. What we learned from this game in recent years, and particularly in this game, is that a quarterback, it alone does not make a team better. It takes a whole team to make a team better. We've seen quarterbacks like Mac Jones start in New England, didn't have a good supporting cast around him, flamed out. Now he's with the 49ers. He's had a few starts. He's done pretty solid with a good supporting cast around him. A pretty solid offensive line. At Kyle Shanahan as the head coach, who deserves props for it. Shanahan, even when shorthanded, has been one of the better head coaches in terms of performance. And he's managed to get a good out of Mac Jones here in this situation. He's still got Christian McCaffrey there. He can still be a formidable back. So point is, the 49ers have a much better all-around roster. And you see, as a result, Mr. Mac Jones starting to fulfill some of his potential when he came out of the 2021 draft. But Kendrick Bourne had a good game in this one for the Niners, kept them alive in this. And you also had Devontae Adams, had 5 receptions for 88 yards. And so both teams played good on offense. It's just one of those games. Somebody had to lose. And for the Rams, it's kind of a shame that they had to be the losers. But hey, someone had to win, someone had to lose. So shout out to the 49ers on doing their thing. This was a good game. So for the second straight week, NFL, you gave us a good Thursday matchup. Thanks for that. Looking forward to more NFC West showdowns. And now moving on. Now, in the trend of a quarterback going to a new team, resurrecting themselves, the Minnesota Vikings, they won this game against the Browns, but I wasn't that impressed with it. And Carson Wentz, he had to leave the game and come back. Carson Wentz, there he is in Minnesota. You were thinking maybe, all right, maybe in Minnesota he'll have a bit of a rebounder, but in this game he was okay. He was decent. He still had over 230 yards at a touchdown. But he leave the game briefly, then come back after leaving the game. Now, to Carson Wentz's credit, though, he did come back. And as of right now, we're hearing that his shoulder's injured. We'll still have to see if he's going to come back or not. Or was J.J. McCarthy cleared or not. But let me see. I'm going to look up the Vikings depth chart right now. But either way, in that game, though, we also saw the debut of Dillon Gabriel for the Cleveland Browns. Dillon Gabriel and Wentz is questionable. McCarthy's out. But back on subject, Dillon Gabriel had himself 2 touchdowns and had himself a respectable game. But considering Dillon Gabriel's behind a bad team in the Cleveland Browns, I got to respect the fact that he could throw 2 touchdowns with really limited roster around him. That's a positive sign for his first game. Now, we still got to see what Dylan Gabriel's going to do from here. Is he going to turn it around? Is he going to continue to play well? Is he going to come back game 2 and look like a rookie? Because we saw with Jackson Dart, who I'll get to in a few minutes, his week 5 performance wasn't all that special. But for the Vikings, Justin Jefferson had himself a little nice game, showed that he's the best receiver in the NFL currently. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, if you're limited on quarterback, you're struggling, it always helps to have Justin Jefferson against a team like the Browns. So way to go, Justin Jefferson. Great job. And for the Browns, though, hey, they actually did pretty decent. It was, who was their running back in? And they have a pretty decent run. Jukins had 100-plus yards. This one. So the Browns offense actually looked somewhat formidable and they didn't give up too much. They actually looked somewhat formidable. So I give them that. But, hey, win for the Vikings. Congratulations to them. Let's move on to the next one. Talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Jets. We all wanted, obviously, as Eagles fans, we wanted the Jets to win. But we knew realistically the Cowboys were going to win. And it's crazy in this week that we're saying that. You think the one game you would have wanted to be an upset, that you wouldn't have wanted to go the favorites, the Dallas Cowboys ends up going the opposite way in favor of them instead. Kind of crazy, right? But in this situation, Dak Prescott balled out. He had himself a nice game, had himself a touchdown pass, a few touchdowns. Dak Prescott, I got to give him credit, though. He's going out there with a horrible defense, trying his best to carry this Dallas Cowboys team. And through 5 weeks, he's got them at 2-2-1. Now, their future still looks in doubt, how their season's going to end. Their only wins have been against the Giants and the Jets, 2 struggling teams. But they've found a way to win 2 games. And even their 2 losses, even the loss to the Eagles, they were competitive. They gave us a fight in the first half. And the tie against the Packers, Dak went out there and balled out, had himself a phenomenal game to try to help. So credit to Dak Prescott there for going out and doing his thing and taking care of business. Even as an Eagles fan, I got to give him props. Dak Prescott had himself a good performance. And the Jets, too. Justin Fields even had himself a pretty solid effort, even in defeat. He did have 2 touchdown passes. And Breece Hall actually had 113 yards on 14 carries. And Garrett Wilson had a touchdown. This was a good offensive game for both teams. And Dak had, 4 touchdowns. Javonte Williams had 135 yards on the ground. All around good offensive game and good performance by both offenses. So I'm going to give credit right here to the New York Jets for taking care of business in this one. Doing what they had to do. Or sorry, not the New York Jets. You got the Jets tried their best. You can see with Aaron Glenn that locker room culture is turning around. And with the Cowboys, they're at 2-2-1, but we still got to wait and see where they go from here. But their big concern is defense. We know their offense is doing good. They're holding down the regular season, but defense, big concern that they got to focus on. And for the Jets, man, I give the Jets credit. They're trying in their games, but they're just not producing wins. But that's the consequences of the post-Aaron Rodgers era of the Jets, where you went all in to make Aaron Rodgers happy in the short term, and you're left with nothing in the long term, and now the Jets are paying the price for it. They're trying to make the most of a poor roster. Aaron Glenn's kind of stuck in the same situation Dan Campbell was during Dan Campbell's first season, the Lions head coach. So I think it might be a similar situation where the Jets play hard, but they just struggle to win games early. They just need to get better as a team. Aaron Glenn's that type of coach that can convince players to come to the Jets. Maybe they get better in the future. This could be the AFC version of the Lions, Dan Campbell rebuild in a few years. But either way, hey, Cowboys got the win. They're a couple games back, so I got to give them props on that. But moving right along, we're going to talk about the next NFC East foe. Now, this NFC East foe didn't exactly impress and earn my respect as a team the way that our most heated rival did. I'm talking about the New York Giants, losing to the New Orleans Saints 26-14. We all had them picked. We all picked them to win this game, but in typical Week 5 theme, he was the upsets. And this was the first of many ups. This was one of many upsets right here. Oh my goodness. This was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Jackson Dart, hey, he had himself a good first game, but second game he comes back. Now, defensive had some time to look at him, scout his style, and they see that Mr. Jackson Dart still has some work to do. But to be fair, he was shorthanded Malik Neighbors. And you're also talking about a situation where the Saints, despite the fact that they're a terrible team, do have a decent defense, though. We can't underestimate that the New Orleans Saints actually have a decent defense, despite the fact that their offense is putrid. Spencer Rattler, not the answer at starting quarterback. But the Saints found a way to win this game. They took it, man. Giants had 5 turnovers in this one, folks. I repeat that. 5 turnovers, folks. 5 turnovers. You're not going to win NFL games with 5 turnovers. 2 interceptions, 3 lost fumbles. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. And to the New Orleans Saints, congratulations. You will not be 0-17. You will not have a winless season. You will not join the Browns and Lions and the early Buccaneers. You at least got a win. So congratulations to the New Orleans Saints. But let's be real. The Saints, I'm not that impressed. The main reason they won is 5 takeaways and the Giants giving up near 100 yards in penalty. Yeah, over 100 yards in penalty, actually. That don't help at all. So, all right, Saints, congratulations. Take the win. Run with it. And to the Giants, they still got some work to do. Now they come back Thursday. They got to play my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, at MetLife. Shorthanded. And remember, too, I can't put all the blame on Jackson Dart, though, because Dart was shorthanded. Shorthanded is running back. Shorthanded is best wide receiver. What do you expect him to do? What did you really expect from Jackson Dart, shorthanded, his top wide receiver and running back? There really wasn't much they could do, so I can put part of the blame on the Giants being shorthanded, too. But it is only Jackson Dart's second game of his pro career. And plus, we turn around and play him on a short week, so I'm not going to say anything about him yet. Let's see what he does from here. Let's see how the Eagles do against the Giants. We'll go from there. But the next game, speaking of the Giants, we're actually going to talk about a team with one of their former players. The Indianapolis Colts destroy the Las Vegas Raiders 40-6. Daniel Jones' redemption tour continues. He had 2 touchdowns in this one. Daniel Jones, again, actually looking like an NFL quarterback in Indianapolis with Shane Steichen as his head coach. And Jonathan Taylor, he didn't have a great game. He had only 66 yards rushing, but he had 3 touchdowns, and that makes a huge difference there. And in Jonathan Taylor's case, what we learned from this, it's not always about having the prettiest stats. It's about scoring points and winning games. And David commented, the Raiders are a mess. Yeah, absolutely. And Geno Smith, man. The Geno Smith, it was fun back in 2022 when he redeemed himself with that Seahawks team, that 9-win season to get them to the playoffs. But the wheels have fallen off the wagon now. Geno's looking washed. At least we can say with him, he had have a few decent seasons, so he moved himself out of the bust tier, but he hasn't really done anything since. This is why I wasn't high on the Raiders bringing in Geno Smith. And this is the mistake they've made the past couple drafts. They haven't gone for their quarterback. Once they cut ties with Derek Carr in the 23 offseason and let him go to the Saints, they've needed all 3 drafts, 23, 24, and 25, a fresh start at quarterback with a young quarterback to try to build around. And guess what? They haven't done it. What have they done instead? Tried to go kick the tires off of QBs like Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, and Geno Smith. And that hasn't worked in their favor at all. And this game proved ultimately that, hey, the Las Vegas Raiders can't keep relying on veteran backup quarterbacks to lead as the starter. They got to go draft the quarterback and get a guy to build up for the future and build a team around him. Absolutely. Yep, and David's on the same page with me saying the same thing. Absolutely, they should have drafted a quarterback because now you've seen 3 straight seasons. You try to run with veterans or inexperienced guys like Aiden O'Connell. Let's not forget that. And it hasn't worked out. It's like, look, for the Raiders, they better learn this time around. They better draft a quarterback. But even then, do you go there, Dylan Gabriel or Shador? Absolutely. At this point, you might as well have just taken Shador if you were the Raiders. What were you really going to have to lose by drafting Shador? Really? Come on. Seriously. Look at how bad it is now. Would Shador have been that bad of a quarterback? What's up, Mitch? What is up? Thanks for stopping by. Mitch, later tonight, he'll be doing the 76ers preseason game against the Magic later, so check him out for that. And like I said, though, the Raiders, it's pretty obvious that, yeah, you made a huge mistake not drafting your quarterbacks. And for the Colts, though, hey, Shane Steichen's doing a pretty good job as the coach. Hell, he even nearly got them on the cusp of winning the AFC South his first season with no real quarterback. And here he is now with Daniel Jones. They're actually rolling. They're 4-1. They're tied for first in the AFC South. So I give props to the Colts. They actually got a pretty good team. If you look closer at it, they got a lot of good players that don't get a lot of love, too. You got Michael Pittman Jr., Alex Wright. And you got a lot of people on that Colts roster that are really actually pretty good, actually. And you got, so I got to give the Colts credit here. They actually got themselves a good scrappy team here. And you got, Josh Downs on defense. You got Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, Travarius Ward. You actually have yourselves a pretty solid and respectable unit here. Zaire Franklin, this is not the most standout team in the world, but they do actually have a pretty good team. They're underrated. So shout out to the Colts for getting the win and let their momentum keep rolling. Now, all right, we're back, folks. We just had a little technical difficulty there. We're back on it, folks. But as I was saying, moving right along, no. We went from one team in the AFC that's not living up to the expectations to a different team that's not living up to expectations for the opposite reason. That being the Carolina Panthers beating the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, who, despite having a lot of turmoil, were still projected to be, if healthy, maybe a contender to at least make the playoffs or maybe get a wild card berth, right? But instead, now you're talking a 1-4 Dolphins team who now lost to the Carolina Panthers in a game they were favored to win. You're starting to notice a trend going, folks. That was week 5 in a nutshell for you. In this case, Rico Dowdle had himself a career day, over 200 yards on the ground in Chuba Hubbard's absence. And Bryce Young actually threw a few touchdown passes and looked respectable in this game. Whereas the Miami Dolphins, yeah, Tua did have a few touchdown passes, but here's the big thing. The Dolphins could not convert on third down. So while the stat line looks nice, doesn't mean anything that the team couldn't convert on third down. And ultimately, they ended up losing this game. Now, the Panthers, I'm not going to take anything away from them. They found a way to win with no expectations. But, hold on. All right. But what? Hey, Blaze, what is up? Good morning, good morning. Thanks for stopping by. See Blaze stopping by now because this team's on a bye week, so he don't got to worry about me roasting them. He gets to just sit back and enjoy. And stay tuned, Blaze, because I'm roasting the Ravens in a minute, so you're gonna want to hear that one. But the Panthers, though, I gotta give them credit. They found a way to win this game. Rico Dowdle had himself a career day, and you have the Dolphins, though. Yeah, we're at that point where they're gonna have to retool and do something for the future. Probably means the coach's dismissal. Don't be surprised if Mike McDaniel's gone soon rather than later, because he's just not. It's just not cutting it out. We thought early on they had a spark that first season there. Even year 2 when they made the playoffs, we thought they had something, but it's just not panning out to be. Tyreek Hill probably played his last game as a Dolphin last week on Monday night, so probably just looks like it's better for the Dolphins to rebuild going forward. For the Panthers, hey, take the win, run with it. I'm just not so sure. But moving right along. I talked about this one yesterday in a live stream, so I'm going to kind of be short on this one. All I'm going to say, I'm going to kind of recap my main points. For the Eagles, this is what happens when you have a one-dimensional offense. You may have your flashes of brilliance, but as the game goes along, your opponents adjust. And credit to Nick Bonito. He was a beast. He's been a beast for this Denver Broncos defense. And he had himself a really good season. Here in the Eagles game, he had 2.5 sacks and a total of 4 tackles in this one. So I got to give him credit for he really helped keep that Broncos defense together. Their secondary had 5 total deflections. And J.K. Dobbins and them, they came back in the second half and won. So I'm going to give the Broncos credit. All right, good to know. I'll check that out later. But yeah, and for the Broncos, though, hey, congrats. They did what they had to do. They came on the road, won an upset against the defending Super Bowl champs. Now they're 3-2, and now they're tied with the Chargers for first place in the AFC West after what happened last night. So credit to the Broncos, and now with the AFC West looking wide open, all I can say is best of luck to you the rest of the way. And for the Eagles, maybe they learn from this mistake. Maybe they try to get Saquon more involved in the game, which I'm surprised they didn't try to get Saquon more involved. This seemed like the early Sirianni deal where they tried to force the pass, and here we are as Eagles fans still complaining that the Eagles pass too much. Feels like deja vu. Hopefully they group and get it together for Thursday against the Giants. And we'll see from there. But like I said, I mostly talked about this yesterday, so we're going to move on, give some of these other games attention. Blaze, if you're still in the chat, I'm roasting one of your division rivals. Let's get to it. First off, CJ Stroud returned to 2023 rookie form, throwing 4 touchdowns. Nick Chubb, while not the same running back he was at his peak, is still a pretty solid option. Once Mixon comes back, if Mixon can come back to form, maybe Nick Chubb could be a good number 2. And for the Ravens, man, I'm sorry, not to take anything away from the Texans who won 2 straight after an 0-3 start. Not take anything away from Nico Collins and that Texans defense who had a good game, but the Ravens, seriously, 1-4. Look, I understand that sometimes teams don't always live up to expectations, and I knew the Ravens had their flaws, but I didn't think they were going to be 1-4 to start the season. I feel like this is just a matter of I feel like they've ran their course with the main core, with Harbaugh as the coach. They need to make some changes. I'm not necessarily saying get rid of every single person, but maybe just that coach, they need a fresh change. Because sometimes it happens. Even good coaches stay past their expiration date. As an Eagles fan, I remember this very well with Andy Reid. That final season in Philly, it looked like everything ran its course. Andy Reid really just needed a change in scenery. He went to Kansas City and he redeemed himself. Maybe that's what's happening with John Harbaugh. Maybe it's just a situation where he's overstayed his welcome and he's just emotionally burnt out from being in Baltimore. Maybe he just needs a fresh start somewhere else. And that can happen sometimes even to the best coaches. They get to that point where they've been there a long time and just it runs its course and they still try to run it back with the same core and it just don't work out. Now, to be fair, Lamar was injured too. That didn't help. But they were already 1-3 with Lamar and with Cooper Rush. Now we know why the Cowboys kept Dak Prescott as the starter over Cooper Rush. You see what Dak's been doing this season to help the Cowboys, even though they're not really that great of a team. He's the one reason they've still been competitive, and they're still sitting at 500 right now. Cooper Rush behind this train wreck Ravens team he's not cut at all. Now you see why the Cowboys chose Dak over Cooper Rush, plain and simple. And for the Ravens, man, I think you got to start blowing it up and make some changes, man. Derrick Henry, I think maybe it's just, maybe he's at that point of where running backs they get, you know what happens with these running backs? Sometimes they get ran to the ground and it just don't work out as well. After a while, they just, the wheels fall off. They get fatigued from constantly carrying the workload. Maybe that's where Derrick Henry's at now. Maybe I think maybe it's over for him. Maybe they just need to move on. Maybe Derrick Henry's not the same running back he was at his peak. And for the Ravens, though, yeah, I think they got to make some changes at some point. I think it starts with the coach and then go from there. Because this team looks like an incomplete cluster. I mean, there's still a possibility. Maybe they could win games later in the season, but we still got to wait and see on that one. But any note, that's all I'm going to say on this one. I'll take a quick break, then we'll be right back to recap the Sunday evening, Sunday night, and Monday night games. This is where things start to get a little interesting, folks. So stay tuned. Your boy will be right back. We'll break it down. Alrighty, folks, ladies and gentlemen. After a quick break, we right back to it. We recap the kept the Thursday and Sunday afternoon games now. Folks, time to move on to the Sunday evening, into the Sunday and then Monday night games. Let's start off. This could have potentially made the rant of the week, but it got cut short. The Tennessee Titans come back against the Arizona Cardinals. Cam Ward gets his first win as a starter, and the Titans get off the winless base. Now the only winless team left are the New York Jets. I mean, with all due respect to the Titans, congrats on the win, but this is more about the Cardinals, dude. Cardinals, again, they're 2-3, but honestly, the way they played, they probably should be 0-5. They're not. They managed to win 2 games, but even during those week 1 and week 2 wins, they look like one of the worst teams. Like, they look like the worst undefeated team entering week 3. Those Saints and Panthers games are games they had no business winning the way they played. But they got lucky, start off 2-0, and now we've seen 3 straight weeks, loss. Now they dropped to 2-3. And ultimately, hey, this is the Cardinals' karma. And their main issue, though, was they had 2 fumbles in the second half that could have changed the outcome of this game and gave them a more desirable outcome and gave them the win. But instead, they ended up fumbling the ball away a couple times, once on a long drive that could have resulted in points. And they were a hot start in the first half. They had 3 touchdown passes. Offense was looking in sync, but they just couldn't keep it together. And that's the thing with the Cardinals. How much longer is Jonathan Gannon going to be? I mean, how much longer is this going to last? I mean, come on. Seriously, Jonathan Gannon, bro, but that defense cannot hold up late in games. They can't. And plus, there was a whole thing where he went and mouthed off about his running back. This is why I've been telling you, bro. I remember 3 off seasons ago, the summer of going into the 2023 season. I was saying Jonathan Gannon is not going to make a good NFL head coach. And sure enough, I was proven right. I remember the collapse in the Super Bowl 57, particularly on the defensive side. They couldn't close out. And guess what we've seen with him so far this season as a head coach? Defense collapsing late in games. And they, first against the Panthers, they collapsed and got lucky week 2. They collapsed against the 49ers. They collapsed here. And they collapsed last week against the Seahawks. Jonathan Gannon is the king of collapsing defenses currently. Now we see why I was never high on Gannon as a head coach. And ultimately, they got what was coming to. Now, with that being said, though, we continue. Let's move on to a game that was more expected. Detroit Lions, Cincinnati Bengals. We'll kind of breeze through this one real quickly. Look, the Detroit Lions did what they needed to. Now, Cincinnati Bengals, to their credit, they did put up more of a fight. You still got to remember the Bengals have arguably the best 1-2 wide receiver duo in the NFL with Chase and Higgins. Actually, I'll say they are the best 1-2 duo. With that 1-2 duo, you'll get points on offense as long as they're healthy. And in this case, they did. They got 3 touchdown passes from Browning, but they also got 3 interceptions as well. And also the Detroit Lions, you got Aiden Hutchinson back and healthy. You still got a lot of the same pieces from last year. Detroit Lions did their thing, nearly put up 40 points against the trash Bengals defense. And that was good enough for them to win. When you have a solid all-around roster like the Lions, you find ways to win games. If you have a great 1-2 wide receiver duo, but down your starting quarterback and a trash defense, you find ways to be competitive and lose games. Pretty much self-explanatory as to why the Lions won, the Bengals lost. Let's say it's one of the few games from Sunday that actually went the way we expected it to. Moving on, let's switch gears now to some of the other games. Now, this game was actually a game that, surprise, did live up to expectations. Seahawks and Buccaneers, We expected a really good game. We got it. And it's crazy to think 2022, my second full NFL season on YouTube. But that was the first season I was actually going live. You had the Carolina Panthers had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold as their two quarterbacks to start the season. They were both looking like their careers were dead and they weren't going anywhere. And then week 5 of the 2025 season, Baker Mayfield started for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Sam Darnold for the Seattle Seahawks. Both teams have an offensive shootout. Both quarterbacks had excellent individual performances. Darnold did have that pick at the end that played a role in the Bucs game-winning field goal, but it was still a great game. It was still a good game by Darnold, and I'm still confident that Darnold can be the signal caller for the Seahawks going forward, at least for this season. And then with the Buccaneers, man, I give them credit. Seems like they always find ways to win these tight games. In the common denominators, Baker Mayfield's been at the helm. This year, the Bucs are coming through big time and winning these games. Yeah, that we beat them last week, but outside of that, it seems like, yeah, these games are close, but Tampa Bay always finds a way to win. And I feel like as of right now, if everything keeps going the way it is, they could be a dark horse. But we still got to wait and see how it pans out as the season goes along, because if you guys follow football long enough, we all know teams can turn around mid-season in a great direction or in a negative direction. And I'm not saying that for the Bucs are going to do that. The Bucs have a really good team. I mean, you got Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irvin. You still got Emeka Egbuka, Cade Otton. And Igbuka's having himself a really good rookie season. He's got 6 touchdowns already. He's starting to draw comparisons to rookie Randy Moss and rookie Tim Brown. But Emeka Egbuka so far having a phenomenal season. He's showing that he could be the potential successor to Mike Evans down the line. And now, speaking of that, you get Mike Evans back, Egbuka's still healthy, you're really going to have yourselves a nice 1-2 duo over there. And like I said, there might come that day where Egbuka is going to be the number 1 guy over Mike Evans. I feel like it's not a matter of if, but when. It will only be a matter of time before the torch gets passed from Mike Evans to Emeka Egbuka, because he's balling out, having himself a phenomenal season. Barring any serious injury, it's going to happen one day. A credit to him, credit to the Buccaneers for winning this game, and shout out to the Seahawks too, because this was a really good offensive battle. And this is what you get. Both teams have good offenses. And not to mention, though, with Sam Darnold, it helps that you actually have yourselves a pretty good number 1 wide receiver. You have yourselves a good number 1 wide receiver there in Smith-Njigba. That was actually so good for them. And I'm actually happy for Darnold and Mayfield that they're redeeming themselves with their new team, new squads, instead of floundering out into football irrelevancy. But moving right along, the Washington Commanders, they got themselves Jaden Daniels back. And it goes to show right here, the one takeaway from this game, I'll say, is it goes to show you how, from the Chargers standpoint, injuries to your offensive line, and now also an injury to Omarion Hampton, who's put on injured reserve. So that's another big blow to the Chargers' running room. It looks like the wheels are quickly falling off for the Chargers real fast. After a hot 3-0 start, first 3-0 start since 2002, and in typical Charger fashion, just when they get everyone's hopes up, they collapse. Offensive line, shorthanded. Running backs, you're shorthanded. Justin Herbert, not looking so great without an offensive line. And the Commanders, though, they did their thing. They got a couple takeaways. Jaden Daniels being back gave their offense some spark, and good for him. I'm actually Jaden Daniels had a touchdown pass in this one, 231 yards, pretty solid all-around performance to come back. And now the Commanders are back at 3-2 and just a game behind us. So Eagles, let's make sure we win Thursday night to keep that lead in the division, because the Commanders are back and they look like they mean business, and they look like they're still our top competitor in the NFC East. So shout out to the Washington Commanders. And but it wasn't just Jaden Daniels. We got to give credit where credit's due to their rookie running back, folks. Folks, we got Mr. Krosky Merritt, had over 100 yards on the ground, had himself an excellent game, easily his best game so far through his rookie season. So shout out there to the young man, having himself a pretty good effort running the ball. But anyhow, man, that was so good job there by the Commanders, man. Something we as Eagles fans got to keep our eye out for, man, because I'm telling you, Commanders mean business, and they look like they're going to be back and in control, folks. For the Chargers, I feel like it's going to be another Charger job where it just only goes downhill from here. You're already starting to see the signs, injuries, wheels falling off the wagon with these guys. And I'm going to say is, man, hopefully for the Chargers, they get it going from here. But it's a shame. I feel bad for Chargers fans because it seems like no matter what, they're cursed. And the curse looks like it's continuing again. Moving right along. Patriots Bills. Who would have saw this coming? This is just why this week was such a crazy week with upsets. Seriously. Oh my gosh. The New England Patriots and Buffalo Bills. Granted, it's a rivalry game, so we expected a competitive game, but not like this. And crazy. The Bills and Eagles, being the only two undefeated teams, lose. Now, we knew they were going to lose eventually, but I would have liked to have trolled with that scenario about the Eagles and Bills playing each other undefeated in December. Like I said, I know it wasn't going to happen, but you couldn't have just let me troll with it just for another week or two. Come on, football gods. But hey, shout out Stephon Diggs, turned back the clock in this one, had over 100 receiving yards, had a few crucial catches that helped play a role in the outcome of this game. And Josh Allen and the Buffalo offense, they just couldn't get going as well in this one. I mean, to be fair, it's just one game. I'll give the Bills a pass on this one. Just one game. They're still 4-1. Still feel like Buffalo is winning that division, and they're still going to do it, and they're still going to take care of business. So I'm not counting the Buffalo Bills out, but I'll give the Patriots credit. They're now at 3-2. You know, it looks like Mike Vrabel certainly done a better job with the Patriots than you had last year with Mayo and in the last couple of years with Belichick. So good job there by the Patriots getting the win. Like I said, Stephon Diggs turned back the clock. Hunter Henry had himself a pretty solid game. Even Tom Brady busted Gronk's chops about Hunter Henry being the best tight end in Patriots history, but that being said, it's just 1 week. I'll give the Patriots credit. Looks like Drake May maybe has himself a decent future there. But moving right along, and we got one, and you think it wasn't crazy enough. We get one more upset to close out the week. The Jacksonville Jaguars against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this was a good offensive game. Both teams' offenses played pretty good. A lot of high scoring, but here's the big thing. Kansas City gave up way too many penalties. This looked almost like an Andy Reid coach game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Backdoor in Andy Reid's Philadelphia Eagles tenure with giving up a lot of penalties, being undisciplined. And what is it with that defensive line, bro? Come on. Trevor Lawrence literally slipped and fell. You still couldn't get to him and at least touch him down by contact. You let him get back up. And then he goes and scores the game-winning touchdown. I'm sorry, but that says more about Kansas City's offensive line than it does the Jacksonville Jaguars' heroics on that play. But at the same time, look, let's just start off with it. Before we get to Jacksonville, let's start with Kansas City, get that out the way. Kansas City's relying too much on Mahomes and Reid to be the playmakers, but it's not working. They need to get better as a team. Maybe they make a trade before the trade deadline, get a few players that could help out, maybe a wide receiver or someone in the secondary to help out, but they got to get better as an all-around team. That's the big thing for them. Maybe we'll talk later about possible trade options for Kansas City, but as of now, it's not looking so great. They got to get better because now you have the Broncos as of now are looking like the favorites to win the AFC West the way it's looking right now, the Chargers falling apart with injuries, Kansas City not playing up to standard. Broncos looking like they might be the best team going forward in that AFC West, potentially. But also at the same time, I got to give the Jacksonville Jaguars credit. You come back this year with no expectations, with a new head coach, you're tied with the Indianapolis Colts for first place in the AFC South. So I'm going to give credit to the Jacksonville Jaguars for being undefeated and defying all our expectations. So shout out to the Jaguars. Now you're 4-1. Maybe really what you just needed was a change at head coach. I mean, you still got Travis Etienne there. You still got Trevor Lawrence. I still think the dude's kind of overrated, but and you still got Travis Hunter now on your team. And you got Liam Cohen. Maybe now Liam Cohen was just the answer you needed at coach. Because last year you had a lot of the same pieces with Doug Peterson, and it just didn't really work. It didn't really work out. Maybe just having a fresh voice in the locker room is what you needed. You got Brian Thomas Jr. on that team. It looks like you actually got yourself a pretty decent team here. You still got Josh Allen, right? You still got the other Josh Allen. Of course, not that Josh Allen. And the Jacksonville Jaguars still do have a pretty decent team, all things considered. Start Emmanuel Ugboga. I mean, all around, you still got, like I said, a respectable core there in Jacksonville. And they're finding ways to win games. Tyson Campbell there, but hey, I got to give the Jaguars credit, man. They're defying expectations. They're 4-1. Now, will it last? Time will tell, but for now, I got to consider the Jacksonville Jaguars a winner for week 4 and one of the surprise teams. So moving right along, we'll just close out real quickly. NFL week 4 winners, Jacksonville Jaguars. Sure, you kind of got an easy schedule, but you're 4-1 in a season where nobody had expectations for you. That's pretty good. And considering that, the AFC, considering Kansas City doesn't look as strong, there might be and considering the division isn't that strong, there might be an opportunity maybe for the Jaguars to win out the division later this season, maybe even beat the Indianapolis Colts for it. So I'll consider the Jacksonville Jaguars a winner for being 4-1, defying all expectations. Next week 4 winner with this one, I'll go the Denver Broncos, man. They found a way to upset my Philadelphia Eagles on the road, move themselves to 3-2, and now momentum's looking in their favor to possibly win the AFC West, with Kansas City not being a shell of their former selves, with the Chargers starting to hit the injury bug more and more, and they're looking like a worse team, and the Raiders just being putrid. Maybe the Broncos do win the AFC West. So that's my second week 4 winner. And my last week 4 winner is going to be the bookies in Vegas, because they probably made a lot of money off these upsets. Because there were a lot of upsets in this one. Saints over the Giants, 49ers over the Rams, Panthers over the Dolphins, Jaguars over the Chiefs, Patriots over the Bills. That's at least 5 upsets I just named right there. Oh, Broncos over the Eagles, 6. I could probably maybe think 1 or 2 more. But that's 6 upsets right there. So they definitely were a big winner in this one. Now, the week 4 losers, anybody who did picks, whether it's just a weekly straight up pick 'em, bets on Sportsbook, most of them were just losers. Anyone who did picks or bets, period. First week 4 loser. Second week 4 loser, the Kansas City Chiefs. You're at 2-2 and you lose embarrassingly to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's terrible for momentum for them, obviously, because now here you are sitting at 2-3. Not sure about your future. You're not sure, you're wondering about Mahomes. Is this team going to still be able to compete? Do they need to make some trades? That's a big L for them right there. And the last loser for this week, I'm kind of toy. I'm actually going to go with the Arizona Cardinals, because here you had a chance to be above 500 in a really competitive division where you need every win you can get. You have a winless Tennessee Titans team. You're up 21-3. You have the game. in the palm of your hand. You control your own destiny for where you're going to stand headed into week 6, and you lose, and now you're 2-3. You lost to one of the 3 winless teams entering this week. So that's a huge L for the Cardinals there, because now you're 2-3, and also you're going in a really competitive division. So that's my thoughts right there. It's all right, guys. So it's over. Thanks to everyone that joined in the chat. Blazed, Mitch, David, thanks for stopping by in the chat. Anyone else who caught this, whether you caught it live or on the replay, thanks for stopping by. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're doing this both on the Nicky Stees channel and the Hardcore Sports Network. But speaking of the Hardcore Sports Network, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they'll be doing Week 6 NFL Pick'ems. NFL fans, during the NFL regular season, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, your boy hosting NFL Pick'ems exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network. Each episode will be featuring special guest YouTubers, predictions for the upcoming week, injury reports, roster updates, debates, and more. Every Tuesday, exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, with that being said, folks, episode 29 of the 3-Point Blitz is down, and I'll be back later tonight on the Hardcore Sports Network for Pick'ems. You guys can catch me then. So with that being said, have a great rest of your day. Hopefully I'll catch you later in the chat on Pick'ems. If not, have a great Tuesday. Till next time, your boy Nicky Stees signing.